are listening to The Thought Leaders Show with the world's cutting-edge, hottest innovators, influencers, and impact makers today. If you are looking for inspiration and motivation, listen in. Welcome to The Thought Leaders Show. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I am so happy to welcome back David Adelson. He really does bring peace and harmony into everything he does. And I invited him back today because last week we talked about peace and harmony, and today we're going to be talking about how to become a master co-creator. And first, let me just remind you about who David is. He was told to just have fun when he launched his business, and he placed a 3-line, $5 a week ad into the local shopper's guide of a small town in western Massachusetts. And then he spent his time hanging out with horses and his friends. Hey, that sounds like something I would do. And he only answered the phone when it rang. A year later, he had clients in Scotland, England, the Netherlands, Canada, Maine, New York, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Florida, North Dakota. North Dakota, actually, that was North Carolina, but he probably had clients in North Dakota. I don't know. I've been thinking about North Dakota lately. And listen to this. He was earning more than $90,000 in that year. And he never really worked, and it only took about 20 hours a week. But his background really is so much more. And I'm actually going to bypass that a little bit because you can read it in the show notes about his background in quantum physics and consciousness and unified field theory. But I really want to get into this breakthrough with you, David, about how to become a master co-creator. So, David, please help us understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's a great pleasure. I so enjoy talking with you and sharing with your audience the wisdom and the knowledge that I've been graced to receive in my life. It's a great blessing. I feel my life is, and I feel that in service to others to share this is such a wonderful gift. So I'm grateful to share it. And with you, I want to get into it. There's a lot of material about being a co-creator. A lot of people when they think of I'm a co-creator, they think of it in a much less in-depth way than the reality is. And we want to get into the very deepest level so that people can become a full master co-creator. And to do that, we want to start with first of all, we're a co-creator, which means there's a creator. We're not the ones who created the mountains, the hills, the valleys, the ponds, the trees, the oceans. We didn't do that. Someone else did. And then out of kindness, out of love, they put us here and said, here's a playground, here's a Garden of Eden, here's a whatever, do with it as you will. So we're born in Texas or Florida or France or whatever we are. And at this point in our life, assuming that, we're 30 or older, or even, when we've reached the point where we're deciding where we live, we're deciding who our friends are, what our job is, then in that sense, we're the co-creator. And I think a lot of people think that's all it means. I'm the co-creator and that I decided to move to France, or I decided to move to Florida, and therefore, whatever happens. There are those who, are consciously aware of, as we've talked about before, the law of attraction, or consciously thinking particular thoughts so that those things manifest in your life. And we totally support choosing positivity over negativity, having a clear idea of what brings you joy and what brings you fulfillment. What we want to talk about is in terms of consciousness and the unified field, when we begin to understand what the purpose of creation is and what our role in it is. And I'm not a preacher, I'm not anything, I just have the information that I have, and I firmly respect and honor all of the traditions in the world. There are many. I personally believe that God is kind and benevolent, whether we call it Divine Mother or whatever our tradition is, and that God would not be so cruel as to pick one part of the world and say, you can have true knowledge, but nobody else can because they don't speak your language, they're not your skin color. I think God gives it to everybody, and I think that every tradition has truth at its basis. Now, whether it's been a little misconstrued over the course of, decades or eons because of stress or misunderstanding or whatever, the enlightened always talk to us from their level. So they're presenting God in his fullness, but we often hear like little kids who are watching TV at the same time and we don't quite get it. So, we mess up things. But from my perspective, every tradition at its basis on the planet has truth. And if one understands that, one can reach whatever level that they have within it. Are we good? Is all this?
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. And again, I mean, when I was a teenager, I remember I traveled to Thailand, and I was with another teenage girl, and she was crying profusely. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she was worried about her Buddhist family because they were not Christians. And so she was a Christian, and she had been taught that only Christians went to heaven. And she had fallen in love with this family who treated her so well. And I remember I was 17, and I said to her, I said, God wouldn't do that. God is for everyone. So when you were saying that, I absolutely believe exactly what you said, that God is for everyone, and that there isn't a religion. It really is, God is love, God is a source, and it's not about where we are on the planet or in the universe. We all are there. And so I just was, when you were saying that, you probably saw my head shaking up and down because I was agreeing with you, because I think that's really important for people to understand that we are connected to that source of love. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, one of the things is that God or Divine Mother, I tend to reference Divine Mother in my work, but God, however it works, is a well-wisher of all of us. That's just a supporter who's there to help us, just a loving mother, a loving father, whatever it is. So I wanted to lead with that appreciation, because what I'm about to say, somebody may get a little, I don't want to jar anybody. So, I don't mind. We'll just see what happens. Okay. So I was sitting at dinner one time with some friends, and the download that I got, we all know how sometimes we just get knowledge, and I've had a very profound connection, again, by the grace of the divine, with Divine Mother and others my whole life, and quite emphatically since the 90s. It just became overwhelming. And somebody asked a question, and she just said, create. I'm going to paraphrase, but basically the idea is you guys take creation way too seriously. That it's all about play. It's all about the play and display of divine intelligence, divine grace, creative intelligence, whatever term we want to use. And she said, here's the way to think about that unbounded awareness or pure consciousness or the unified field, from whatever level you want to talk about it, is a field of infinite possibilities. And we know that because it's an undifferentiated source, means there's no lines or drawings or anything within it, no edges. But somehow from that, all of creation comes about. So all of the colors that we see, all of the moods that we experience, all the sounds, all the tastes, everything, all comes from this unified field of all the laws of nature, which has intrinsically within it nothing. So basically, you think of a bowl of water, and from a bowl of water, somebody comes and they sculpture an ice sculpture. And we've all seen, in movies or something, some beautiful ice sculpture. But that's just water, okay? Or maybe we see a cloud. That's just water. There are different shapes and textures that can be experienced from this water. Well, water only has some possibilities, and the unified field has all possibilities within it. And so what I heard that day, what Divine Mother said is, she said, so this unified field hears within itself the rumor that it has all possibilities within it, and it says, cool, let me see what that looks like. And it kind of gets a little excited, like we've seen little kids jumping up on Christmas morning or whatever. And so something starts happening within it. And this in and of itself is a huge miracle that I talk about in a little essay that I have. I should make it available to your people. I'll send you a link, but it's the miracle of pain and suffering. And it talks about all of that. But the idea is that we just talked about what you can make from a bowl of water, a frozen statue or steam, or, pour it in a cup and it takes a shit. But here's something that has nothing to start with in it. It has nothing. Nobody comes along and does anything. Somehow it manages to get excited within itself, and out pops creation. And, maybe we talk about it in terms of God is created first, and then God creates creation, and we're quite happy with that. But the whole point is that from the side of unbounded awareness, from the side of the unified field, all it wants to do is experience all possibilities. It doesn't pass judgment on any one experience over another. It's just as delighted with snow and ice as it is with palm trees and a beautiful beach in Hawaii and coconuts and all of that. It doesn't differentiate from its side, it doesn't differentiate between drama and comedy. It's all it's looking for is, wow, that's very cool. What else can I do? So we can have a golden age at some time in the past when Socrates and all of these Pythagoras and all of these people were doing all these things in Greece. That was a wonderful time in the world. And an unbounded awareness just says, that's really cool. What else can I do? And then we have the Crusades, or we have, World War I or World War II or the Civil War. And from its side, it just goes, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. What else can I do? And the reason we want to explain it this way is creation doesn't have a goal. It's not like at the end of the game, at the end of the clock, the football game ends and whoever won. It's not that when we reach some level of accomplishment, there's going to be a big hurrah and creation ends. Have you ever heard that quote that Alan Watts talks about he compares the way that we look at the world to music? Have you heard that?
No, what is it?
It's a lovely little about 2-minute video. You can find it on YouTube. And what he explains is that we grow up going from first grade to second grade to third grade. We graduate, elementary school, we graduate high school, we graduate college, we get the job, we aspire for the next level, we get the next level, we keep aspiring for more and more and more, and it's a kind of linear growth thing like this. And so on some level, we think that creation is the same way, that it's striving to reach a particular point and then it's fulfilled. But he says that's not the case. He said the better analogy than the way that we look at the world is musicians. Musicians play. They just play. And it's not to get to a particular point, it's the joy of playing. So he points out that we don't go to a concert to hear the end. we don't go just for the finale, for the last 5 notes or whatever. We go to hear the whole process. And he talks about that creation is more about, it's about the play, which is what we're talking about, that the purpose of creation is literally expansion of happiness. It's literally unboundedness. It's whether if you want to call it God, Divine Mother, it's literally saying, let me see all the cool things I can do. And there's joy in that. And we know in our own lives, sometimes we watch action adventure, sometimes we watch drama, sometimes we watch comedy, and we are delighted with each of them in turn. We don't ever look at drama and go, well, I like comedy, therefore drama is wrong and it shouldn't. We don't pass judgment like that. So all of this is about, we want to set the scene of when we look at creation and we look at us being a co-creator, that what are we trying to co-create? Okay, what is the goal that we want? And very often in terms of co-creation, we think we're trying to create a particular goal or a particular experience, and that's exactly right. We do want to co-create given where we are and what's available to us. And what's available to us means inside, our hearts, our minds, our intellects, outside, our relationships to others, to the weather, to the world. There's more inward and there's more outward that are all part of what we're going to use to co-create the experience that we want. Are we good so far? Is that making sense?
Yeah, because I'm having that reaction of how cool is that? Let's do more.
Yes, exactly. So on one level, when we co-create, we co-create by thinking something. So we either knowingly or unknowingly create our surroundings. If we move to France, if you go to Thailand, if you live in Florida, that's something that you've consciously made the decision to do. But maybe you cut somebody off in traffic and you don't even know it. You weren't even aware. They were in your blind spot and you moved over and now they're hostile in you. And when they see you in the grocery store 10 minutes later, they're directing animosity. Maybe they're rude to you. Something's going on. And that is also our co-creation, but it's not intentional. So we look at, one of the ways that we consciously or unconsciously, one of the ways is that we think and therefore we create. And everything that we think, without exception, we create. So one of the things that we think is, okay, maybe you're thinking about orange juice. So there's 2 things about this. One is how clearly we think it, and 2 is how much power we have behind us. And power means how much alignment, how attuned, how in sync we are with the universe, with unbounded awareness, with the purpose of creation. So if we're in full alignment, then we have nature behind us. And this can be full alignment through spiritual growth. And that's often the case. If somebody does something and they do some spiritual practices, meditation or whatever, and they get more in line with themselves. We all know the sports people who are, when they're in the flow, nothing goes wrong, just like that. So that's one level of alignment, of attunement that we can have, and that gives us power, that gives us strength. And then the other thing is how clearly we want what we want or how clearly we're thinking it. So we could have the thought one day, orange juice would be nice, and then 3 days later on the internet or on TV or in a magazine or in the newspaper, we suddenly see a commercial for frozen concentrated orange juice. And that's the fulfillment of that thought. That's the manifestation of it. Now, we may have not cared, or we may have more clearly wanted, what I really want is a glass of fresh, organic, squeezed orange juice that somebody hands me right now. But something in the process, either in the clarity of the thought or our own level of ability to manifest, wasn't quite what it was. And I think I mentioned last time about being in alignment that we have a quiz to help people with some information, and they can just go to takethisquiznow.com, and that can help them learn about how in alignment they are. And then we have some programs, and they'll get some free information and stuff about how to get more in alignment, which includes more clarity of thought of what you're trying to create, and how to increase the power. So one thing is that we think and we create something. Another thing is we do something, and because we did that, because we cut that person off, or because we gave somebody a flower, we've created something that we experience in our lives. So
basically, it all boils down to what we think about is like a trigger mechanism to creating something. And when we're just randomly thinking, we create things, but that we don't really have a purpose behind it. Like thinking about, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice glass of orange juice? And we're just like, that's a random thought. Gee, that might taste good. And then it shows up. But like you said, it wasn't like you didn't have enough intent or thought or power behind it to make it happen exactly the way that you wanted it. But everything starts with a thought, and you can create obviously bigger, better things other than just orange juice. But I think the big point is that you made, that I think is the, oh, cool, let's do more part, is that there is no end of what we could be co-creating. Am I getting this?
yes, that's exactly right. But also what we want to create, and what we want to be the co-creator of, and what we want to experience. So we've gotten to the point, we're going to go 2 more levels about this, okay? Maybe more. We'll see. Okay. So the first thing is that we think and therefore we create. But then we also sometimes think and create something that we don't want. For instance, I'm tired today. So I have the thought I could take a nap. But if I take a nap, I won't sleep tonight. Now I've just done something where I've created, if I do take a nap, I won't sleep tonight. Well, there's nothing intrinsically true in nature. That's not a law of nature. It's not in the Bible or the Quran or anything, it's not in the Torah that says if you take a nap in the afternoon, you won't sleep. It's not a law of nature. Okay, it's not something in physics. But we make that decision. We say, oh, if I take a nap, I won't sleep tonight. Therefore, we're creating the not sleeping tonight, even though that may not be an experience that we want. Although, truthfully, I'm going out on a hot date, so I'm going to take a nap so I won't be tired tonight can also happen. So it's not, we're open to things. So here's the thing that we think and we create. We do some action and something comes back to us. We call it karma, however we want to do it. We were nice to somebody, somebody's nice to us. We knowingly or unknowingly we're not nice to somebody, and somehow something comes back. But here's the thing, whatever experience is being presented to us is our co-creation. This conversation that you and I are having we set it up. We met, we agreed to talk, we had a meeting before, we set up a time, alarms went off from both sides saying this is going to happen now. That was very consciously a co-creation. And now we're having this discussion, which is a discussion that I feel we both want to have. So this is, something good. But now here's something that having created something knowingly or unknowingly, we then pass judgment on it. So give me an example of something that has happened to you recently, something that you've seen or talked about or felt, just anything.
Let's see, something that I've recently done. A lot of people, I noticed that a lot of people were interested in TED Talks. And so I started to do more research about TED Talks. And now that I've done research on TED Talks, I notice people are asking me about TED Talks.
Okay.
I don't know if that is a good example or not.
Not the best, but let's see if we can work with it. Okay. You've done, so you think, can we do TED Talks? It'll work. Okay. You're in a very wonderful space right now, because normally if we drop an egg, we then pass judgment on, we co-create, and then we have an experience, and we then pass judgment on whether it's good or bad. Okay. I get caught in traffic. This is whatever the response is. We're not saying that one response is better than another. We're saying that we pass judgment on it. So you haven't done that on the TED Talk thing yet. You're still in the incubation stage.
Right. I'm just
so interested. You don't know. Right. You don't know whether it'll be a good thing or a not good thing yet. You're still exploring it. So that's a wonderful way to be. And the truth is, and why we like this is, that's how we should be about everything. Not immediately pass judgment on it. The sequence is, we knowingly or unknowingly create an experience for ourselves. We then pass judgment on that experience. It's good or bad. Usually it's just those two. Sometimes it's indifferent, but usually it's good or bad. And then we pass judgment. So we're creating the judgment. Funnily enough, the divine doesn't judge. The divine is all accepting, just what you talked about. It's all love. It's all support. It may give, we're not going to go into that part right now, but it lets you do what you want to do. And it doesn't pass judgment. Okay, but we pass judgment. And then when we pass judgment, we then decide, again, being a co-creator, we then decide how to react or respond. So if, one of the stories that I tell often is this friend of mine in college. We were in the dining room, a couple hundred people in the dining room, excuse me, and noisy, crazy college dining room. Somebody drops their tray, immediate silence. 200 people, be quiet, look around and everything. And how would you react if you dropped your tray? What are you going to do? Okay.
Well, I would immediately be stooping down, trying to pick it up, and I'd probably be beet red and embarrassed that I got the attention of 200 people in the room because of the silence.
Yeah, and we're embarrassed because we messed up. You're not supposed to drop your tray, all of these things. Yeah, but that's not what my friend did. As soon as he got the silence, he hammed it up. He threw his arms up in the air and said, "That's right." And he said his name, I so-and-so, dropped my tray. The peas are over there. I'm really embarrassed. The carrots are over there. The plates are, it just went on and on for so long. We all finally said, John, just sit down. But he took that experience and he chose to decide to respond and react in a way that brought not only him, but others joy. And this happened in 1974, and I'm talking about it now. So this is a long-lived thing, and I've been talking about it for a long time. So we drop an egg, we trip and fall. We all have that scenario that we stumble and we're in the intersection in Manhattan and there's hundreds of people around. We all think that our trip and stumble is so important that everyone else is glaring at us and passing negative judgment on us. But is that true? Most people.
Most of the time, nobody's really even paying attention.
Yeah, and what they tell me in Manhattan is they step over people. They don't even you're not wasting. I'm not. They don't give you an ounce of their time. So we create knowingly or unknowingly a situation. Then when we experience it, and we may put conditions on it. Then when we experience, we pass judgment. Is it good or bad? So that's the second level of co-creation. The third level is we then decide how to respond or react to it based on that. Now, here's the whole thing about, and why I wanted to start with the beginning about the unified field and the purpose of creation. It's not just about co-creating the experiences that we want, or, we get the raise, we get the guy or the girl, or we get the pet or whatever, but it's also about creating who we want to be. And at the ultimate level of co-creation, and this is what being a master of co-creation is, what we're doing in every moment is we're deciding who we want to be based on what's going on in that moment and what we want to experience in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yes, because you're basically saying that as a co-creator, we are creating or co-creating, but we're passing the judgment and we're making it into what we want it to be. And if we're operating in the right place, obviously, if we're seeking happiness and joy, we would be headed in that direction. But it's that, I guess it's the free will part of us that we can make it into something. It actually happened to me. This man wrote me this bizarre email today. He wasn't going to redo his appointment with me because he misinterpreted my tone in writing, which was, "Oh, no problem, let's reschedule." And he took it as, I don't know, I guess he was in a bad mood. And so he turned my comment of "no problem, let's reschedule" into me being upset with him, which it didn't, I was not upset. It was just, in my opinion, things happen, and electronics fail, something happens. But he, in that moment, he turned an innocent "no problem, let's reschedule" into whatever he was feeling. And then he upset me. And then I was like digging around trying to figure out what I said. And I tracked it down. I wrote him back and I said, "Oh, it was just miscommunication." So I was part of that miscommunication, but he actually turned it into a negative when there was no emotion connected to it at all.
Perfect. So this is a perfect example. He created a situation where he's interacting with you and he got a response from you and he passed judgment. This is what we're talking about.
Exactly. That's another example.
Right. He passed judgment, and then when you got upset, you passed judgment, and then both of you chose how to respond. Both of you made the choice, him first, to get upset, and then your response was, what did I do? Now, all of this is you're co-creating, again, knowingly or unknowingly. Knowingly, you wanted to talk to him. Unknowingly, something went amiss. That wasn't something you consciously were trying to create with him. But then what happened is something was experienced, somebody passed judgment, and then somebody chose how to respond and react. And what's beautiful about it, Tammy, is that you chose, this is not who I want to be. I do not want to be a person that's in a fight with you or an argument with you. I want to be a person where we work together. And the experience that I want is that we have harmony between us. And this Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you literally just read my mind and how I felt, because I was really, I was like, whoa, where did he get that? Because, that wasn't where I was coming from at all. I was just coming at things happen. We'll just reschedule and move on, because whenever anything does happen where like an appointment isn't quite right or something, I just figure, the timing's not quite right. We'll figure it out another time. And I just keep moving along without a judgment about the person or the situation, other than, hey, we live in this fast-paced world and, we just need to keep moving. But yeah, you read me right on target with that.
Okay. So, and the point about that is a lot of people don't. You have spent a long time.
With somebody else here. See, people got headphones on and stuff like that to hear what's.
Sorry.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have spent you're you, okay? And you spend a long time working to create the you that you want. And that's exactly what we're talking about doing, is in every situation, in every moment, we get to make a decision of who we are and who we want to be. There was a movie called Harvey with James Stewart. It was a play. And did you ever see it?
Yeah, Harvey, about the invisible rabbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Harvey is this invisible rabbit, and 6 foot, who's the best friend of I can't remember his name right now. I'll remember it later. The James Stewart character, and the James and I'm very. When I first thought I was very young and naive, and I didn't really get that he was an alcoholic or had a problem, which in today's society one might see that about Elwood P. Dowd. That was his name. But there were several scenes in that movie that I just thought, that's who I want to be. And there's one scene where he's talking to somebody and somebody's kind of asking him about his lifestyle. And he said, when I grew up, when I was growing up, my mother used to say to me, in this world, you have to be oh so smart or oh so kind. Oh so pleasant, oh so pleasant. And he said, I spent 35 years being smart. I recommend pleasant. And his character was that he was just what we're talking about. He was accepting of everybody, which drove his family nuts, because he'd walk down the street and whoever he met, he would invite to dinner. And maybe they were the mayor and maybe they were some homeless person. And he was totally good with all of them. He felt they all had a story. They all had some value. And that's the character that he was. And there's another scene in the movie, and he's such a gentle soul. And there's a scene in the movie where they're in a restaurant table and they're talking and he's telling something. And he says the phrase, and as the evening wore on, and then he pauses for a moment. He says, that's a delightful phrase. With your permission, I'll say it again, as the evening wore on. And then he goes back to his story. There's just certain things. And as a kid, I just remember thinking, I want to be that person. You know, as we go through our life, we see all these different embodiments around us. We see the Olympic skiers. We see in movies the good guys and the bad guys. And whoever we resonate with, whoever the protagonist is, whoever we identify with, we can move in that direction of creating that for ourselves, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we do that, again, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't make the choice of who do I want to be in this moment and what do I want to experience. And to be a master co-creator, that's exactly what you have to do, pretty much moment by moment. Now, you're not starting from scratch. You're not having to recreate everything, but you've taken step A, B, and so now you're at the door and you're going into college. Who do I want to be in college? Now I have this job. Who do I want to be in this job? Who do I want to be, and what do I want to experience? And we want to remind you all the way back to the beginning, the purpose of creation is expansion of happiness. So why not choose a life that's wonderful for yourself? And why not choose a life that you inspire others to enjoy their life? It's so simple. Just enjoy your life. And one of the ways that we can enjoy our life is just exactly what you said earlier when you were talking, Tammy, about we live in this world, things happen, technical things happen. You said, I don't pass judgment. How simple for us to just accept at face value what's out there, and then from that level, just cut to the chase. who do I want to be in this situation? What do I want to experience? And then bring that into manifestation. Then we're powerful co-creators who really can control everything about our lives. It doesn't mean that only good is going to happen to us at every moment. We're aspiring for that world. We're all shooting, trying to get heaven on earth or the golden age or whatever it is. And I think we're headed in that way. But we're not that way yet. So we all have, Monday blues or Tuesday, whatever happens. But that doesn't mean that needs to drag us down or slow us down. If we don't get into the judgment of it and rather instead just go, who do I want to be? What do I want to experience in this? So many times we make life events something that should have been not even a footnote. We write chapters about things that maybe they had a big impact on our life, but maybe that's not who we want to be anymore. I had a friend who totaled his car. He only told 2 people. Because he said, I don't want to be that guy that everybody feels sorry for or whatever the reaction is. He was at somebody, he was parked at a stop sign, not parked, but at a traffic light, and somebody plowed into him at about 50 miles an hour and his car got totaled. So, but he just said, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be any of that. He told the insurance company and 2 people, of which I was one of, and that was it. That's not part of his life story. So when we want to choose who we want to be and what we want to experience, we should start thinking deeply, not just moment by moment, but when we leave, we will have done something here. We will have moved in certain ways. We will have created certain things. In certain traditions, it said that the greatest accomplishment of a saint is their own life, who they became, what they did with their life. They were constantly working on themselves, constantly trying to improve themselves to be the best embodiment of, whether you want to call it divine grace or in attunement with the purpose of creation. It's that ability to move in flow with the times, in flow with nature, not the miracles that they did. That was not their great accomplishment. And we all have within ourselves, and to your audience, this is what I'm talking about. I know you already know this, but we want to get the message out. We have within ourselves to become whoever we want to be. And while not every one of us is a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King, we all have a sphere of influence, even if it's just the grocery store and the gas station attendant. We can interact with people in ways that can be uplifting and exciting and loving and kind and supportive, even when we feel crappy inside. So,
wow, that really is powerful. And it's funny that you said that, because there's a man at the grocery store. He's a checkout guy. I don't even know his name, but whenever I see him working, I always go through his line because he always says that he's happy to see me. And he always says, go out and have a great day and God bless you. And I deliberately go to his line just because I like the way I just feel like, wow, I'm going to go through his line because it's always going to be a positive experience. And he's always going to say hello to me, and he's going to send me out the door with love. And so but that's an example of him choosing to be who he is, and he's a checkout guy at the grocery store.
Yeah.
But the impact, if you think about that, how many people he sees that he gives that gift to every single day he works, and I'm sure there are other people like me who deliberately go to his line just so they get that little bit of comfort, that the kind words that he offers. But everything you're saying, it just really resonates with me, and so that's why I'm it's like, yeah, I have to talk to David some more. because everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. And what I really like about what you're saying about being a master co-creator is it's not about co-creating stuff or things. It's about co-creating who you are and who you are as the person going out into the world, and how you can make that difference just by being who you are. That's what I think I really appreciate about your descriptions in all of this. It's not about trying to get anything. It's really about being and living and operating from that place of love and joy and peace and harmony. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And the thing is, and I loved your example of the checkout guy at the grocery store, because it really brings home, we don't have to be anybody special to be somebody special.
You're right. And just that smile. I mean, I know that sometimes I'll just see somebody and I'll just smile at them as I'm, going, and I'll get a really nice response back, that they'll smile back. Or if I'm, how you almost run into people with your cart, I always say, excuse me, and things like that. Or when I go through the checkout at the drive-thru or something, I always say thank you. And sometimes it's almost like these people are surprised that you say thank you or excuse me, or that you're, polite. I mean, common courtesy type things that I think the world is missing. So that's really beautiful. And again, I'm going to have to invite you back again. Of course, we'll talk about something else. But
we have a lot.
So you have the quiz. Take this quiz now.com, and somebody can go there and kind of get a handle on where they're at with all of this.
In terms of alignment with themselves.
Alignment.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm going to also refer to our other interview where we did talk more about peace and harmony, and I believe it was peaceandharmonydownload.com. And I'm just going to tell everybody that I did that, and again, it's silent. You don't even know it's running, but it affects you. And I did have a major peace and harmony experience with that. So I highly recommend peaceandharmonydownload.com, and then takethisquiznaw.com. David, before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think we're doing good, but just this idea of not taking ourselves too seriously. We're here to enjoy life. And I love that thing that Divine Mother said years ago, which Maharishi actually said. Maharishi started the TM technique, said we must take very seriously, not taking ourselves too seriously. And when we were working on one project a long time ago, there's this phrase that they put in the legal thing when you go to talk to psychics and people who do your astrology and all of this, which will say, that you'll talk to a lawyer or a doctor or whoever, a legal professional, and that this reading is for entertainment purposes only. And we were creating something, I don't remember what product it was, and Divine Mother said, creation, for entertainment purposes only. And I just love that. We're here to enjoy or at least not mind. Just enjoy your life. You've been given amazing gifts. I love that one thing that, what are the wonders of the world? And they're seeing and touching and tasting and the senses and the heart and loving. I mean, people have amazing gifts just waking up. And for us to start to appreciate them, can lead to co-creating an incredibly blessed life for yourself. And I encourage everyone to do that.
Wow, that's beautiful. And that certainly fits with everything that I've been working on with the Daily Success Institute and my Daily Success podcast. And it's just been a real pleasure to take a deeper dive into this becoming a master co-creator. I really appreciate it and all your time, David. And everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to the Thought Leaders Show. To get all past shows and to get all future shows, go to thoughtleadershow.com.